Well, hello, welcome to 2021. We're now towards the end of January, so it's time for us to start my usual annual seed sowing sort of collection as you walk along with me and see what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So, you'll see I'm filling some fairly large pots today. That is because today we are mostly going to be sowing alliums. Now, if you've seen the plot tour I did a few days ago, you'd have seen that I've already got quite a significant quantity of alliums in. However, we use a lot, so I've got 4 beds of onions in and 2 beds of shallots, but we go through a huge quantity. And I always like to have some spares because it's one of those things that everybody uses. And in my view, the taste of onions from the shop is vastly inferior to what you grow your own. Normally I grow them from sets, and I'll plant sets at the end of the year, and then I'll plant sets in about April-ish, and then again probably in about June. So I've got a continuous rolling harvest. So the sets I planted last year, which are all Senchu yellows, will be early ones, and then these will be for sort of towards the these will be harvested towards the end of summer, and will see me through winter. Normally I do those via sets as well. However, as the various magazines have sent me some seed, I thought I'll give it a go to do it from seed this year. And I'm going to treat them exactly in the same way as I do my leeks, although I am starting them a little earlier than I do my leeks. I don't start the first batch of my leeks until February, and I'll then probably do so about May as well for overwintering leeks, May or June. First one's Red Baron, Active Front Red Baron. I don't grow these from sets. They are horrific from sets for bolting. So I'm hoping that because these will be a single year crop, we won't have anything like as much of an issue for bolting as we would with sets. Right, now there are 2 real ways in terms of planting any allium. You can either module sow and do sort of anywhere from 1 to 6 per cell, and then thin out. But I'm going to treat these, and I found this is the best way when doing my leeks, is take a big pot, sow them fairly thickly. There's 2 pots of Red Baron here. And then once they are through and they have not, everybody says don't plant out until you get to pencil thickness or you'll, that's fine, because leeks do have quite a deep root system. So if you were to put them in a module tray, you'd absolutely have to pot them on. These you might get away with keeping them until pencil thickness, but I find after a while the growth slows dramatically. So getting them to pencil thickness takes an awful lot longer if you leave them in the same pot. So what I do is I just I pot them up into, it's a bit of an odd way to do it, but it's always worked very well for me. So I'll take the entire lot out, I'll shake as much root ball off as possible, I'll then run it under the tap and gradually peel off the individual plants once they're about 2 mil across, something like that, 1 or 2 mil across. Certainly not pencil thickness, more sort of not even a thin twig really, more like a thick blade of grass. Pop them up into individual, just 3-inch pots, and away they go. So these will be watered. They will go into onto a sunny windowsill. I might put them in the propagator for a couple of days just to give them a kick start, but what you don't want is too much heat. So bottom heat in a propagator literally until they just start to get the crook neck stage. So poke through when they're still crook neck, they haven't opened up yet. It's the absolute maximum. Heat is the quickest way to kill them. I'll pop them onto a gravel tray in the windowsill for probably another 2-3 weeks, and then they'll go outside on a table. Once, as long as we don't have a really hard sort of cold run, if it's looking like it's really cold, while that sort of hardening off process is taking place, then I'll bring them back in again. But by and large, on a windowsill, it gets down to about 9 or 10 overnight, 13, 14 in the day. So not hot by any stretch, but not cold either. And again, they'll go outside, and as spring progresses, they'll naturally grow, and then we split them out. And then when we split them out into the 3-inch pots, they still stay outside in the 3-inch pots, growing on nicely. And then once the weather warms up a bit, and generally the way I always tell is when the roots start coming out of the bottom of the pot is the point at which of a 3-inch standard 3-inch pot, 3-inch black pot, one of these. Once the roots start coming out the bottom, it's time to put it in the ground. That way you're not really damaging anything. You know that the root ball has taken up the whole of that space and it's ready to go. And that's the same. I use that same process for everything. I did it for my shallots last year, and it was the only way that worked. I tried about 20 different ways to get shallots from seed last year, and that's what worked for me. Speaking of shallots, here's my shallots. Highly recommend these. Good quality, very good value. Standard Zebrun or banana shallots. That's what if you watch the video, you'll have seen those. Those are overwintered bulblets, so they'll be actual shallot bulbs from last year that I stored. I've been building up my supply of those sets because they're really expensive to buy. I mean, really expensive to buy. £5 for about 10. Certainly more than I'm usually willing to pay for. It's a cooking delicacy. It's a staple in our house. We use loads of shallots. So yeah, I think between the 2 beds, and I'm planting here enough for another 2 beds of those 6-foot square beds. That should be enough to allow me to do what I want to do, which is that I've got family that love pickled shallots, and normally I only get 1 or 2 jars out to them. I'd like to increase that to probably 10 jars of pickled shallots, plus having enough for us for culinary use over the course of the year. And that's not unreasonable. I think 4 beds. It's generally 6 rows of 8 long. So what's that? 16, 32, 48. So it's 100 shallot plants in that bed, give or take, and they'll split into anywhere between 6 and 10. So a decent number. So that's the shallots. And last but by no means least, and these will be the earlier ones. I will still sow some more sets in probably June. And the last ones are Elsa Craig. Again, freebies off the back of a magazine. I don't normally grow Elsa Craig sets. Or Elisa Craig. No, Elsa. I haven't got my glasses on. But they were free, and they're onions. So can't see any downside to it. Not to be confused with Elsa Craig tomatoes, of course. Don't know if it's the same breeder, which is quite a range, which is unusual. But yeah, same name. And that's that for the alliums. While I'm here, however, I will do some coriander. We go through a huge amount of coriander, and this can really be planted all year round. Again, this will be planted. This, however, will live on a windowsill for a lot longer. You can keep it there permanently if you need to. I prefer to get mine out as soon as the weather's warm enough to improve its growth, because I find you put it in the ground and it just explodes in size, and you get way more cropping off of it. I shall probably do a bit of a hybrid. I would imagine this will be up and be croppable before the weather's suitable for it to go out. So I'll take some indoor croppings, and then it can go outside. I'm quite generous. Because when it goes outside, I'll split the base stock out as well, which will give me a nice big bushy bed. And again, this one will go into just a windowsill. That won't go into a propagator. I find they don't really do too well. If you put them in a propagator, they just sort of, they don't really come to anything. My next week's I will be planting some sweet peas. That'll be later than normal. These are some saved ones. My first batch of early peas, which are ever faithful alderman, and peppers, both sweet and spicy. So come and see me next week when I start to sow those. And until then, I will catch you next week.